we have got Michael, him from Florida. Michael, how are you, sir? And what would you like to talk about?
Hi, guys. I'm calling because, well, I've sort of been in an agnostic space for a little while now. I started questioning my faith back in 2019. And, you know, that kind of brought me into contact with a lot of the literature of different scholars and whatnot that, you know, showed like the sort of the more human side of the development of Christianity or the Bible, the New Testament. I want to get straight to it, I guess. The thing I'm calling about is I guess I'm hoping to see if you guys can give me any advice or counsel on dealing with sort of this recurrent fear of hell, because I was raised in a denomination that didn't even believe in eternal conscious torment. We believed in annihilation. But for some reason, not too long ago, actually, I had a dream or a nightmare about going to hell, and it was of the eternal torment sort. And that ever since then, I've been looking at videos that, whether it be skeptical videos or even Christian debates about what the nature of hell is. And I don't know, it's put me in a place where I can't self-diagnose, but I almost feel like I'm in a mode of depression because my appetite is gone. My body feels weak. I always want to sleep. The things that were fun for me have lost their savor. And I don't know. Sometimes it's like I don't know what to do with my mind in terms of how do I deal with this, because there's always that part of my mind that's saying, "Oh, you just want to get this over with so you can sin, or you can not worry about responsibility." It's like, I don't know. My mind's a mess sometimes. I know you guys aren't therapists, but I was wondering if you guys have any sort of advice on dealing with that, if any.
Yeah, Jimmy, do you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. Well, Michael, I'm glad that you premised that we're not therapists or counselors. I don't want to give you the misconception that I have some kind of clinical answer or professional opinion in this matter where it comes to your mental health. I do think that you acknowledging that you might have a problem, though, is good. And your call or your issue that you're dealing with might be able to be divided into two separate things. So you having a fear of hell and maybe some of the other things that you're experiencing might not be related. You might be able to kind of get some help with this depression that you think you're experiencing and still examine this fear of hell that you have separately. But what I would say is you had a dream that you were going to hell, right? But did you ever have a dream that you were going to Hades? Did you ever have a dream that you were going to purgatory? I mean, did you ever have any kind of dream that came from a religion that you weren't raised in? And the answer is probably no. And so you have been, I would say, likely programmed to believe in certain things, and unprogramming or deprogramming, however you phrase it, is a difficult task, but it's one of repetition, or at least it requires constant repetition, and it kind of requires strength. It requires you to kind of snap out of it and say, okay, that's made up. I'm having a moment where I'm going through this programming and it's time to take a step back. We've all gone through it, I think, to a certain extent. For me, I think hell was one of the first, or fear of hell was kind of one of the first things that I was able to get rid of when I realized that I was an atheist. That it was difficult, right? It was a tough challenge, but I had to keep reminding myself, like, this is silly. I mean, the concept that we have of hell now is not even in the Bible. So there's one way to kind of look at it. And that's why they say reading the Bible is kind of a way to help people out of their religion and onto a path of, skepticism or atheism even, because these preconceived notions that we have that we grow up with, we find that the origins are kind of just a little asinine, and there's really no consistency with them. So I think that, just being strong, continuing to kind of question what it is you believe, you have to go look at the source. You have to open your Bible and read it. I think that is a good way for you to go on the religious front. On the mental health front, I want you to, continue to try and seek help on that in going down that path from a professional. And I think you're doing that. So good on you.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael, do you want to respond to Jimmy and then I'll jump in?
Sure. Yeah, I guess. Well, like I said, the the thing that was weird for me, and this is kind of the confusing part, is like I said, I was raised Seventh-day Adventist specifically. I was raised in a denomination that preaches the doctrine of annihilationism, in that God ultimately destroys sinners and unbelievers. But then I just randomly I had this nightmare of the eternal conscious torment version of hell, which is something that I wasn't even particularly raised in. I'm like, okay, to be fair, I suppose my family was Roman Catholic when I was little, but then we became Seventh-day Adventists when I was about 4 years old. But the general thrust of my upbringing was the doctrine of annihilation when it came to the teaching of hell. And the fact that I had that nightmare not a few days ago, and it's been really pardon my language, but fucking me up for the past week or so, or past 2 weeks really. It's confusing. So it's I was only saying that in response to when you asked, have I had a nightmare about Hades or something like that? It's not. It's not to the degree of me having a nightmare about an underworld from an entirely separate religion, but sort of from a separate denomination. I don't know. So like I said, that was the weird thing for me, and it's I have no idea why my mind is so stymied by this to the point that I can't even. Sometimes I feel like it's ruining my ability to even think critically about different topics when it comes to being skeptical about religion. So
yeah,
I really a question.
I really want to encourage you to have you heard of Recovering from Religion? They're someone who you can kind of give a call, who do have trained people who you can talk to coming out of religion, and they're really, really, really good. It was started by Dr. Darrell Ray, and they've got people all over the world in all different time zones. There's always somebody there who you can talk to, and they're really, really good. They've also got I think this one was also started by Darrell Ray, the Secular Therapy Project, which is kind of Secular Therapy Project, which is kind of along the same lines. And I encourage you wholeheartedly to go and kind of look at them and give them a call, especially Recovering from Religion. They are really, really good. We'll put the links are in the chat, and I'll also make sure the links are in the description of this show for you as well, if you want to kind of look back retroactively at that. But they're really good. It sounds to me like you'd really, really benefit from neither me or Jimmy are counselors. Jimmy gave you some great advice, but we aren't counselors, and it really seems to me like you would benefit from speaking to a counselor. And what Recovering from Religion can kind of ensure is that if you go to a counselor, you're not going to a religious counselor who's just going to kind of reinform these things that you're going to a counselor for to begin with, which is not what you need. So I hugely, hugely recommend you go to Recovering from Religion. It sounds to me like they might, and I say I'm not a counselor, but this is just kind of listening to you and Jimmy speak. It sounds to me like you might have some kind of underlying thing, which isn't might not necessarily be the fear of hell itself. It might be that that's just kind of triggered this underlying response that you might have. So I think, speaking to somebody who is a professional and who maybe to dig into that a little bit further would be very, very beneficial to you. It's strange to me how this, because you said you didn't have this kind of fear of a hellfire, but it's this which has caused all the kind of the fear in you. So it's was there any kind of particular trigger other than just this nightmare which started this kind of path off?
I've been trying to think on that for a while. It's because I was really confused as to why my mind is even going there. I remember even when I was more devout, before 2019, I would always look at the people who believed in eternal torment as woefully deceived, or they're believing in a false doctrine and stuff like that. But nonetheless, I think I'm only pontificating here, but I think it may have something to do with when I was reading different articles about because a friend of mine, I practice martial arts, and a friend of mine once was telling me, who used to be in the same martial arts class, that martial arts is evil, it's satanic, and blah blah. And I was looking at an article from a Christian website about whether or not martial arts is evil. And on that same website, the martial arts thing is kind of a side topic, but on that same website, I saw a link to an article that was teaching that annihilationism is unbiblical. And I don't know, I think it may have triggered something within me with respect to me, like, I don't know if intimidated is the word, or yeah, I guess intimidated by strongly worded imposition of a doctrine or something like that. I don't know. I feel like I'm learning things about myself, about my own psyche, and about my own, like, temperament as I'm going through all this. But if anything, I would guess it was probably that put that seed in my head. And then my mind's kind of like racing through all the, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm incorrect? Because like one of the biggest things I've been dealing with when it comes to my skepticism is, how do I tell my mom? How do I tell my family? How do I address that? Because my elder brother, who's always been more extroverted, more strong-willed, has let my mom know that he himself is basically a skeptic, and I'm not sure if he's called himself an atheist. He seems agnostic, and I can tell how much that's upset my mom. And I don't want to be like, oh, by the way, your other son is also not a believer.
Yeah, Michael. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think we're at a good point to kind of reflect on some of the things that you just said. So you may have been brought up with this annihilationism being the primary course of action that would happen, to you or to any non-believers. However, you were raised in the United States, a predominantly Christian nation that preaches hell to non-believers and to sinners in all walks of life. I mean, you saw it yourself in a magazine. You hear it about martial arts. You hear it. I mean, it's kind of everywhere we go, right? So, and even in your questioning of what it is you believe and what the possible outcomes could be, even though you weren't raised in hell, I mean, it's close enough to Christianity and close enough to kind of the things that you grew up with that it's certainly had some kind of impact on you. You don't want to let your family down. You don't want to be wrong about this. And I think that lingering fear of being punished is not only a legitimate fear to have, considering you were raised in a dogma, but that's how the religion keeps people, because they go through this psychological kind of back and forth that is really unhealthy. And ultimately, it's kind of designed that way. And so I would say that, kind of focusing on that and maybe not so much the nuanced differences that you and I are talking about, annihilism versus hell versus et cetera, et cetera. The fact is, you were raised to believe that any thoughts that you're having now are wrong and will be met with severe punishment. And it's understandable that you're going through this emotional event, if you will.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Michael, can I just quickly ask you, do you currently practice any form of religion?
No, not really. I'm like, I've kind of, like I said, I've kind of been quiet about my own skepticism for, with my mom at least, for a while now. I've talked to a few of my siblings about it, but I don't really practice any religion. At least not actively. I haven't ever since probably about 2020. Because in 2019 I started questioning things, and then certain religious habits like tithing and going to church kind of fell off, especially when the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, I think what I'd probably make a small suggestion, which has nothing to do with your kind of your therapy as such, but I would kind of make the small suggestion that if you're not actually practicing any religion and this kind of thing is inducing trauma into you, it might be better off to kind of step away from the reading things up on websites and watching the debates and things for a little while until you've had time to work things out internally, because you don't want to keep kind of throwing fuel onto the fire and reinvigorating this trauma. And I do want to repeat again, and I will never stop repeating this to people in your situation, to please contact Recovering from Religion, because they do have trained therapists. They will be able to kind of help walk you through this process a lot better than we can on this show.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Final words, Michael. Anything else you want to say before we let you go?
I don't know. I suppose maybe it's just a little bit cathartic thing to say, but you know, sometimes I've considered even like maybe in order to dispel this fear, this anxiety, this all-encompassing anxiety, is to perhaps try religion again. But then sometimes the thing that makes me hesitant to do that is that it feels somewhat disingenuous, because the way I feel about that whole doctrine is like God is like holding a gun to my head of eternal consequence and saying, you know, smile and worship me. And I don't know, it just feels so weird just to claim to love an entity like that. But
religious trauma is unfortunately a real thing, and you know, I've never been religious. I cannot relate to that kind of anxiety coming up. But you know, all I can do is say, please call Recovering from Religion. Go and have a look on the website, give them a call, and they will really, really be able to help you. The links are in the chat. I'll make sure the links are in the show description as well when we post this up onto YouTube. So you've got that information and those resources there. Michael, I'm going to let you go. Feel free to call us back anytime and give us an update. And yeah, thank you very much for your call.
Thanks, Michael.